This is kind of interesting. See if I can find the soundbite that I want to use to start this off with. Let's go to clip number 6. This is Allison Camerota. She's on MSNBC. And remember, all of the conversation lately has been about Trump's rhetoric and how he's instigating this violence. He's responsible for this violence. He has provoked this violence. And according to the left, there's no longer any room for debate. This is a fact, open and shut. This is a fact. Here's Allison Camerota, clip 6.
Joe, why are we still debating whether or not a president of the United States words have any impact? And why are we still debating whether or not inflammatory words lead to hostility, which lead to violent actions? History books are filled with this continuum and this link. We know all of this.
We know all of this. We know that it's all Donald Trump's fault. Why are we still even talking about it? Now, here is Joy Behar. And remember, they're talking about how incendiary rhetoric, calling people names, vilifying them, demonizing them is bad, it's horrible, it's no good, it's very bad because it provokes violence. Take it away, Joy Behar.
Who knew he was such a psycho? I liked the guy in a way. It was like, oh, he's a New York character. Obviously, you know, I never thought that he would be this bad. Never. Because even before he won, I said, well, if he wins, God forbid, he can't be really such a maniac. He's much worse.
You thought he would. A lot of people said, well, if he wins, he would get a little better, more responsible. And you think he's worse?
I think he's worse. Yeah. I thought he was also a secret Democrat, which he shows us he's not. He's not a Republican or a Democrat. He's just an anarchist as far as I'm concerned.
All right, there's Joy Behar calling the President of the United States a psycho, calling him a maniac, and calling him an anarchist. And this is from someone who says, hey, got to watch that inflammatory rhetoric. You vilify somebody, that's going to lead to violence, and we can't be having that. And if your rhetoric is responsible for it, then you're the one that we're going to blame. Now, here's the media. I got 2 clips from the media about the talking snake media ramping up their rhetoric to blame all of this violence, the synagogue deal, the pipe bomb hoax, to blame all of that on Donald Trump and his inflammatory rhetoric. Clip R1.
This president has radicalized so many more people than ISIS ever did.
As the biggest terror threat in this country is white men, most of them radicalized to the right. And we have to start doing something about them.
Trump has delivered on the things that they care about most. He has delivered racism for these people. He has delivered misogyny for these people.
The same type of rhetoric, the same type of propaganda that you would have seen in Germany in 1938, the dehumanization, turning people into infested vermin.
Look, the young people in this country are not with this sort of evil, nasty authoritarianism you see.
Republicans have to call this out because their souls are on the line.
Yeah. So he heads a giant cult. He also heads a party that knows very well that he's a giant cult.
His erratic behavior, his ignorance could pose a profound danger to every single person in this country and literally every inhabitant of the planet Earth.
A danger to everybody on planet Earth. So it's not just Hitler. Now he's Godzilla. He's a danger to everybody that lives on planet Earth. And you think about this for a second, about this rhetoric. I mean, they mean it. Yeah. They're serious about this. They're not using hyperbole. They're not exaggerating. They honestly believe that he's a danger to every person living on the face of planet Earth. Well, what do you do with somebody that is a danger to the entire planet? You got to neutralize it. You got to get rid of it. So who's to say there isn't going to be some nut job out there going to listen to this kind of rhetoric and say, man, somebody's got to take this out. If you had a chance to take Hitler out, you know, in 1939, would you do it? Of course, you go take him out. So we got to go take the president out. Now, here's a second batch of this kind of rhetoric, clip R2.
The president's obviously a racist. He's obviously a demagogue. He obviously condones anti-Semitism, stokes up nationalist hatred, all the stuff we've said.
That's propaganda. That's what happened in Nazi Germany.
This radical group of right-wingers who've perverted our democracy and really are doing what they can to ruin our country.
This whole caravan in the last week of the election is a giant lie. This is Trump's Reichstag fire.
Yeah. Look, evil lurks in the hearts of men, and it does, and what Trump has tapped into is evil.
We're going to see if this reign lasts for 30 days or 2 years or 1,000-year Reich.
What Trump does with the power that people give him is turns it to evil.
Here we are after the carnage, and this man, this moral monster, is playing to those base instincts.
It's not even a question of whether it's presidential behavior or not. It's not minimally human behavior.
There's no way that he's going to prevail because he's evil. He's dark. It's the opposite of what America stands for.
This has now become a struggle about good versus evil, and the President of the United States is evil.
Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you, I haven't heard inflammatory rhetoric that reckless, that unhinged, that boundless. I don't think I've ever heard that in our political discourse. Just that last stretch. Use the word ruining the country. This is his Reichstag fire. That's the fire that Hitler set to burn down the German parliament and then offer himself as the savior to the people to stop all this kind of nonsense. So that's he accusing Donald Trump of using this caravan as setting the stage for a complete takeover of every part of the American political world. We use the word evil 3 times. He's a moral monster, and he's not even minimally human. So I don't know if that's not inflammatory, incendiary rhetoric, I don't know what is. Now let's go to clip number 1. This is interesting because this is the mayor of Pittsburgh, Bill Peduto is his name. And I think this is it's Chuck Todd. And of course what Chuck Todd wants Bill Peduto to say is that when he asks him this question is that Donald Trump is responsible for what happened in the synagogue. And Donald Trump is not welcome here. We don't want Donald Trump. He's to blame for all of this. So Chuck Todd is setting him up for that answer, and here's how the exchange went.
I don't think that the answer to this problem is solved by having our synagogues, mosques, and churches filled with armed guards or our schools filled with armed guards. I think we're dealing with an irrational person who acted irrationally, and trying to create laws around that is not the way that we should govern. We should try to stop irrational behavior from happening at the forefront and not try to create laws around irrational behavior to continue.
Before yesterday's incident, if I'd have asked you if you had personally seen or felt as if the tone had changed or hateful rhetoric had been on the rise in Pittsburgh and you'd seen it, what would you have said before yesterday's event?
No.
So Chuck Todd, he's baiting him. He's setting him up. He sent him a fastball with no movement on it right down the middle of the plate. And the guy says, no, I have not seen a ratcheting up of the hate and the rhetoric. So swing and a miss for Chuck Todd. Now, here's Donald Trump talking about the shooter in the synagogue. Here's what he had to say.
And in fact, this horrible human being, this terrible person that did the shooting, he was not a Donald Trump fan because he said I was too close to Israel. So that seemed to be his reasoning.
All right, so this guy that shot up the synagogue was not even a Donald Trump fan. I mean, the people want to say this, Donald Trump is to blame for this. This guy was not a fan of Donald Trump. Wasn't even in a position to be maneuvered or motivated by anything that Donald Trump said because he was a friend of Israel. And this guy wanted to kill every Jew on the block. So that meme goes right out the window. You know, and if rhetoric is responsible for violence, then the Democrats, if anybody takes a pot shot at Donald Trump, if anybody tries to run a Republican out of a restaurant, anybody gets in the face of a Republican, challenges him physically, you know, you're going to have to lay that off on Democratic rhetoric.
Or send ricin.
Yeah. You know, and that's interesting. You look at the difference between the way they responded to these ricin packets. This is October 2. They sent ricin to a number of very high-ranking Republicans. You didn't see a word about it in the press, but when it's fake bombs, it's 24/7 for days on end. Nobody even knows about that ricin because the media just didn't talk about it. So for them, small thing. If you know, and ricin's a pretty lethal and deadly poison. So anyway, well, that is it for today. Don't forget, we've got Focal Point Overtime exclusively on live streaming on Focal Point. You can stay right here. If you're live streaming us on Facebook, just stay right here. We'll resume the stream in about 5-6 minutes. Otherwise, go to Focal Point-Brian Fisher in your search bar and join us. Bow low before God, stand tall before man. Never forget, Asiya Bibi proves fighting a winnable war.